Sports Radio.
Here comes the siren. I want to go higher. Oh, my goodness. Posey will defend. Oh! LeBron James with no regard for human life.
Pass is intercepted at the goal line by Malcolm Butler. Unreal.
Oh, baby, for sure.
Kap Sports Radio starts now.
Oh, after a weekend that started off for some of us here at Cabin Radio with a round of golf on Friday. That's right, the 68th annual Peterson and Auger Golf Tournament happened this past Friday at the Yellowknife Golf Club. Mike, my arm was more sore than I have ever had after a round of golf.
Oh, no.
I think that means I'm getting old.
Yeah, you're getting up there.
I don't know how to feel about that.
Which cabin radio personality is the best at golf?
You know what? Between AJ, me, Ollie, and Jesse, we make a pretty good golfer.
Okay. You each bring something different.
We each bring something different.
Nice.
Yeah, in a best ball tournament, we're not bad. We're actually all right.
Okay.
I don't know if you've ever golfed with AJ.
No.
GM here at Cabin Radio. He hits the ball, honestly, like Happy Gilmore.
Wow.
Doesn't even do the approach. Doesn't even charge up to the ball, and it just sails.
Wow.
Every time he hit it, we were just watching and just awe as the ball just sailed down the fairway. We're like, I'm glad this guy's on our team.
Yeah, I believe it. Athletic guy.
Yeah, and then Ollie had the nice straight iron shots.
Nice.
My approach shots, I feel like, have become a strength of, in my last 3 years of not ever playing golf, all of a sudden my approach shots have become decent. And Jesse, the little short game on the green.
You know what they say? Drive for show, putt for dough.
That's what they say.
That's what they say.
Wait, who says that?
I don't know. I think it's a general golf term, right?
Okay.
You can impress everyone with the big shots, but where you make the real money is on the green.
True.
You can tap it in.
So true. Big congratulations to another successful Peterson and Auger Golf Tournament for Sport North, raising funds for Kids Sport NWT. And we're going to talk more about that, hopefully not next week, because obviously it's Labor Day long weekend,
right.
So no show next week. But we're going to try and get Billy O on the show to recap that a bit, talk about how much money they raised and all that good stuff. But congrats to Sport North on yet another fantastic Kids Sport Golf Tournament, the 68th annual Peterson and Auger Golf Tournament. Tons of fun. Tons going on in the world of sports as well. We did not do a show last week, and a lot has happened since then. We're going to keep it pretty simple, though. We're going to take a look at everything that is going on in the world of sports. We're going to focus on NBA tonight. We're going to focus on the NHL playoffs. That is what's mainly going on. So without further ado, let's take a look. No, that's not the right one. That's not the right one. Let me stop that. Let's take a look at this.
There it is.
There we go.
Very good.
Sometimes you just want to start the whole show.
I do love that
again,
intro.
right?
I love that intro, so.
Can't get enough of that Bob Cole. We don't get any of it anymore.
Here comes the siren.
All right, take it away, Mike.
All right, so we'll start off with the NBA playoffs, and really no real surprises in round one of the NBA's playoffs. Play resuming in the bubble in Orlando. In the Eastern Conference, all really short first round series. Both the Toronto Raptors and Boston Celtics, who have engaged in a round two matchup. Game one of that series has already been played. They both advanced via sweeps of Brooklyn and Philadelphia, respectively. And then you have the Miami Heat and the Milwaukee Bucks also advancing in 5 games. Actually, the Heat was also a sweep. So we had 3 sweeps in the first round on the Eastern Conference side. And then the lone loss, I believe it was game 1. The Milwaukee Bucks dropped game 1 to the Orlando Magic, who had home court advantage for the whole playoffs if they were able to stay in. The only team, I guess you could say Miami sort of has a home edge with the bubble being in Orlando.
Yeah.
But of course that means nothing because all the fans are there digitally and they can't leave the bubble.
Well,
So-
that really hasn't worked for teams, whether it's in the NBA or in the NHL.
Yeah.
Of course, Edmonton, Toronto, and the
That's
NHL
right.
making early exits,
Yep.
not even technically making the playoffs, despite being in a home ice advantage type situation.
Yeah.
Is this a first for the NBA, a second round series starting before the first round has wrapped up? I don't think I've ever seen that before.
So I've definitely seen, for instance, like a game 1 of the next round played on the same night that a game 7 of the previous round would have been played.
Okay.
I honestly just feel like they really want to expedite this whole playoffs as much as possible.
Yeah.
Because, like I alluded to, we've already had one game 1. The Toronto Raptors lost a pretty uninspired effort last night, yesterday afternoon, actually, to the Boston Celtics by double digits. Boston's really had their number for the regular season, and of course the one game in the bubble leading up to the playoffs. So that game's already out of the way. So that was yesterday afternoon. We had a game 6 last night between the Denver Nuggets and the Utah Jazz. Denver winning, so they forced a game 7 in that series. So I think game 7 of that first round series is going tomorrow night, which is the same day that the Raptors are slated to play game 2 of their second round series. And then tonight, if you have game 6 going on between the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Houston Rockets, if the Thunder prevail in tonight's contest, we're going to get a game 7 in that series too, which wouldn't be played till Wednesday, which would be a day after game 2 of Boston-Toronto goes. And then I think we have another game 1 tonight between the Bucks and the Heat. I think they're obviously, like I alluded to earlier, a really short series in the Eastern Conference. Big-time favorites in every series, and they all advance very easily. So that's obviously playing into it a little bit. The Western Conference, much murkier. Of course, you've got the Lakers, who advanced in 5 after dropping game 1 of their series against the Trailblazers, and then the Clippers dispatching the Mavs in 6 games. So we know the 1 and 2 seeds in the West. No surprise there. They advance.
Right.
But then, of course, we got these 2 other series, a little bit murkier, with the Jazz and the Nuggets, and then the Rockets and the Thunder. So we can't even move on to the second round until those have been squared away. But I think it is a little uncommon. Like I said, I'm kind of used to seeing, a game 7 in round 1 being played on the same day as game 1 of round 2. You see that pretty usually. But I really just think they want to expedite things as much as possible. We had some really short series in round 1. They want to get things going.
It must be nice to be the NBA, and you don't have to worry about TV ratings. You know they're going to come either way, so you don't have to be, we're not going to have a game 1 compete with a game 7 viewership. No, they're going to get ratings either way, so they don't have to worry about it. But that, in theory, that is really strange that you could, say that the Thunder and Rockets do end up going to game 7. That, like you mentioned, would happen on Wednesday. Yeah. You could potentially have the Raptors and Celtics playing game 3 of their series on the same night as game 1 of whatever the next series is for whoever happens to advance between the Thunder and the Rockets. If they do, if they take a day off in between, if they go, Wednesday and then Thursday, it's still kind of strange that you have game 1 in one series and game 3 of another series happening. But it's just, I can understand, wanting to expedite things as quickly as possible. Like you said, a few sweeps in the first round, maybe, they may have happened either way, but they maybe sort of seem to imply that there are some teams who are like, we don't have a chance. Let's just go home. Come on, let's get this over with. But it is strange to think that hypothetically you could have, a team that advances to, at this point, the Eastern Conference Finals. If it happens to go, fewer games than we're thinking, maybe the Raptors just collapse and they get swept. You could have the Celtics waiting there. Meanwhile, in the Western Conference, they're still in game 3.
We just played game 1 or 2.
It's kind of a weird situation, but this is all kind of a weird situation.
And that's an interesting point too. You wonder how much time there's going to be off between. So if it does go 7, this OKC Houston series, there's got to be at least a day, obviously, but maybe even two in between, round one and round two. They'll know their opponent already. We know that the Lakers are going to get the winner of Houston OKC. We know the Clippers are going to get the winner of Denver Utah. So, and they're just going to be waiting.
Right.
Typically you would see, if a team dispatches another team pretty quickly in 4 or 5 games, typically you would see that team be rewarded with a bit of an extra, get your body right.
Yeah.
You got some nagging injuries. You can now, players have a little bit more time to recover. Not the case. We're diving right in. So both the Celtics and Raptors sweeping the Nets and the Sixers respectively. They did have a couple days off, obviously, but dive right back in relatively quickly. Game 2 already slated for tomorrow night. So
you kind of got to
get things done.
You kind of got to wonder too. Like we said, obviously they want to get things done as quickly as possible. What was that?
This just beeped.
Oh, that beeped.
Yeah, my laptop. Sorry about that.
We're in a different studio today, in case you couldn't tell. If it sounds strange, that is why.
Let's get that volume down.
Laptops just letting us know that who knows what's going on. Anyway, we can certainly understand them wanting to expedite things as quickly as possible. There are players that are away from young families and significant others who I'm sure are very much missing them at this point and would love to be with them. At the same time, do you kind of get a sense that it's almost like let's just schedule games when we can to kind of to keep players occupied?
Yeah.
Almost to keep them from potentially getting in trouble. We've heard, kind of in the early days of the NBA going to the Florida bubble, that there were a couple reports of players who had gone out to the casino. The MLB, there's been multiple reports of that, but MLB is just kind of in a world of its own now. But yeah, do you kind of get the sense that that's almost what they're doing, trying to keep players as occupied as possible and not give the opportunity for those few days off and for potential boredom to set in?
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense. There's a lot going on both within and of course outside of the bubble. We all know last week that players even contemplated leaving the bubble, just given the Black Lives Matter movement going across the states right now, the shooting of Jacob Blake. There were conversations had involving all players to not continue the playoffs at all. And some of the highest seeded teams with the most to lose were the ones leading the charge. The Lakers, Clippers, Raptors, and Celtics. Bucks, they were the first team to announce that they would be boycotting one of their round one matchup games against the Magic last week. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot of distractions. You mentioned players with families. That's a consideration. We were talking just a couple weeks ago about Tuukka Rask leaving the NHL bubble to go tend to his young family. So there's a lot going on for everyone right now. We're still very much in the midst of a global pandemic, especially in the United States, where they've never got things under control. So a lot going on, and maybe that is a conscious decision on the league's part to keep players as occupied as possible by just playing the game. For a lot of people, it is a distraction, probably a welcome one, where they can take their mind off some of the really big things going on outside of the bubble. So, I think expedite the season so that you can get the playoffs wrapped up, and there has to be some type of break before the next NBA season resumes. Or begins, for that matter. But also, maybe that's a consideration too, is that we just want to keep them as distracted as possible. I think the situation you were referring to was when Lou Williams decided to visit an Orlando strip club outside of the bubble.
Right. Yeah.
I remember, and I don't know who got paid to commission this type of thing, but there was a ranking of all the strip clubs for NBA cities, and I think it was something to do with James Harden's point production, and in cities with the worst strip clubs, his production goes up. Maybe he's not as distracted, who knows.
Interesting.
Orlando, I think Miami was rated number 1.
Wow.
Toronto was last in the league.
Lou was just doing his research.
Yeah,
that's all.
So they used to play together. Lou got a little distracted. I'm sure Kawhi had some stern words for him. He's played really good basketball since the playoffs resumed in the bubble. So,
do you like that?
So maybe he put those distractions behind him, I guess. But
Well, he checked it out. He did his research. He filed his paper, and now he's back to basketball, right?
So the running joke now is, I think after round one, the NBA is going to allow players to have certain guests come in and visit them. So Jamal Murray, Canada's Jamal Murray, who plays for the Denver Nuggets, has just gone absolutely off. He's been the best player in the playoff bubble. He's 3 straight games with 40-plus points, 2 50-point games in the series against the Jazz. I think he's the first player since Allen Iverson to have 3 straight 40-point games in the playoffs.
Wow.
He's just gone off. And we'll have some audio from him later, but he's obviously a key reason why the Nuggets have forced a Game 7 against the Jazz. But the running joke is that he knows that if he continues playing, his girlfriend will be allowed to visit him in the bubble. So he's got some added motivation to play really well and keep the Nuggets alive.
And obviously, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention probably the biggest event that happened in the sporting world last week when you mentioned LeBron James, Lakers, and Clippers, and even before that, Milwaukee Bucks players refused to take the court. They postponed several games in the wake of the most recent shooting of Jacob Blake that happened in Wisconsin. Of course, if you've been paying any attention to the news, you have seen the news about that. The NHL following suit a day later, postponing games Thursday and Friday. But, it's just more evidence that, we already knew that LeBron James had carried the most weight in his words in the pro sports world across North America. There is nobody who is a louder and more iconic voice right now, and influential voice, absolutely, than LeBron James. And whether or not you agreed or disagreed with the statement that he and other players made, you had to admit it was a powerful statement. We often look to leaders in communities, and the sports world is as front and center as it's ever been in regards to its relation to political movements and the Black Lives Matter movement in particular. Colin Kaepernick, the other main name that you have heard, of course, many times over. But LeBron James, he knows he's front and center. He doesn't carry that platform lightly, and when he speaks, man, people listen. It's pretty amazing stuff to see. Again, whether you agree or you disagree with the sentiment, you got to admit LeBron James is absolutely the king when it comes to influential voices outside of the sporting world. We're going to take a break. We'll come back and we'll focus a little bit on the NHL playoffs, what is happening there when we come back on Cabin Sports Radio.
You're listening to Cabin Sports Radio, brought to you by Sport North, moving sport forward.
Cabin Sports Radio brought to you by Sport North, moving sport forward. Check out sportnorth.com for everything going on with sports in the North. Most notably, just wrapped up, again, the 68th annual Peterson and O'Shea Kids Sport Golf Tournament, raising funds in support of Kids Sport NWT. Great time had by all. Great job by the Sport North staff putting that on. And hopefully we'll get Billy O on the next episode of Cabin Sports Radio to talk a little bit about that. Maybe he can tell you about my completely duffed drive off the the clubhouse tee off. Ooh. I always forget what hole that is, but the one that's right in front of the I know
exactly what you're talking about.
The par 3.
We have a picture there.
Oh, we do,
from the Midnight Golf Classic a couple years ago.
Absolutely, what a beauty that is.
That was fun.
I was rocking that same Leafs jersey again.
Nice.
It's my classic.
I can't hit a driver to save my life, and it's just so much harder off a tee box.
There's usually clubhouse right behind you.
Yeah, there's
just
eyes.
That sense that someone's watching.
Yeah.
Billy O was right there. I think he got it on video.
Of course.
Just completely shanking it.
Yeah.
Oh, there was a brand new Ford Ranger that was up for grabs if you hit a hole-in-one on that one. Don't know if anyone did, but again, hopefully we'll get Billy O on the show and get the whole lowdown from him.
Nice.
I can tell you this, I was no threat.
No, okay.
Taking a look at the NHL playoffs, every series, all 4 series going on right now, sitting at 3-1. The Bruins down 3-1 to the Tampa Bay Lightning. The Stars up 3-1 on Colorado. The Flyers down 3-1 to the New York Islanders. And as of right now, the Vegas Golden Knights up 3-1 on the Vancouver Canucks. I don't know what I would say is the biggest surprise there. Probably the fact to me that the Avalanche are down 3-1 to the Dallas Stars. I don't know why. I had zero expectations from the Dallas Stars coming into this playoffs. And depending on if they finish off Colorado, whether or not, I think every game in that series there's been like 8 goals total in each game at least. It's been a very high-scoring series. But if the Dallas Stars happen to finish off the Colorado Avalanche and face the Vegas Golden Knights next, that's assuming the Golden Knights finish off the Vancouver Canucks, the writing seems to be on the wall for most people. Most people for the Vancouver Canucks. They don't seem to be giving them a ton of chance here against the Golden Knights. But if the Stars do move on to face the Golden Knights, they're going to have to shore up that defense a little bit.
Yeah.
You're not going to be scoring 5 goals a game against the Vegas Golden Knights. But very exciting hockey so far. I've quite enjoyed watching it. Mike, what's your favorite series that you're following so far?
Well, I would definitely echo your sentiments about the biggest surprise so far. You're talking to someone who, for whatever reason, completely omitted the Pacific Division. It didn't exist to me when I was creating my playoff bracket, my player bracket. I don't have a single player from that entire division. I am still leading, and by a very healthy margin.
No way.
But you're right. I doubled down on the Avalanche. I was a big believer in the Flyers, who are also down 3-1. Went pretty heavy on Tampa. So sort of hedged my bets a little bit with some of the other higher scores from other teams that I didn't quite think would go as far. Dallas was a team that I just also completely forgot about. Sort of slid in under the radar. They would have been one of the top 4 teams, when they were doing the seeding games for the top 4 teams in each conference. Had a great year, but just one of those teams, for whatever reason, really slid under the radar, I thought, and maybe I was drinking the Kool-Aid of the Calgary Flames. I've got a lot of Flames fans up here, and they convinced me that matchup wasn't even good for the Flames. And just because they did have a really hard time scoring in those seeding games, and you sort of wondered where that offense would come from. No longer a concern, clearly. Like you said, really this entire series has been based on who's got the momentum when. There have been some really significant lead changes, but also, stretches of one team scores 3 straight goals, and then the next team scores 7 straight goals. That happened in one game for the Avalanche. I think in their closeout game against the Flames, and that's continued in this Avalanche series where they've sort of traded big momentum swings throughout the first 4 games now. But led by Jamie Benn, who's playing some pretty inspired hockey right now, they're firing on all cylinders and have my Stanley Cup favorite on the brink right now. So I agree with you that to this point has been the biggest surprise to me so far in round 2. Yeah,
it's like the Stars came into this series just hearing all the talk around the league from fans, and they just said, you know what? Shut up about Nathan McKinnon.
Yeah.
We are going to neutralize him, and you'll watch. Yeah. And man, they've done a great job. I mean, the thing is, you're only going to keep them off the scoreboard for so long. But the Stars have found a way to win. They've matched them every step of the way and have found a way to win, regardless of, when those explosion moments happen that you were kind of alluding to. So, all 4 series very much in control by one team. The Lightning Bruins series is particularly compelling, I think. And I saw a story earlier today that one of the Bruins players, I can't remember who it was exactly, but was saying that they need to channel. I don't know what it is about the Toronto Maple Leafs that just seems to inspire the Boston Bruins, but they were hearkening back to like needing to channel the energy that they grabbed in Game 6 of last year's series between the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Boston Bruins. As you recall, the Leafs were leading that series heading into Game 6. They were up 3-2.
Yeah.
Boston just found a way to get it done. And then, anytime you're going to Game 7 in a Leafs-Bruins series, you can pretty much say goodnight from a Toronto Maple Leafs fan's perspective. But as of right now, the Tampa Bay Lightning looking very comfortable with a 3-1 lead up on the Bruins, and the Bruins look like they're a little bit out of answers.
Yeah.
And I think that what also should be noted is that the Tampa Bay Lightning are doing this without Steven Stamkos in the lineup. Haven't had him since the start of the series and have not looked like they've missed him at all. I think the biggest thing is they're just matching the Bruins' toughness.
Yep.
You had Nikita Kucherov throwing body checks on Zdeno Chara, knocking him to the ice, and they're just not backing down.
Yeah.
They're not letting the Bruins get them wound up. They're not letting Brad Marchand or players like that get under their skin. I think they kind of got that out of their system after Game 1. And ever since then, they just looked like they're just going to take care of business and nothing is going to distract them. It's scary if you're a team that is potentially going to be facing the Tampa Bay Lightning. It's scary how they look right now.
Yeah, and the formula for a lot of teams during the course of the regular season, you can rely on skill to take you to whatever level you end up at when it comes time for the playoffs. But the game changes, and we know that. Talking about the Stars earlier, they added some key veteran cogs. Corey Perry, who was a big-time pest in game number 4 between the Avs and the Stars. I think he drew 4 penalties, I think. 2 of them on Nazem Kadri, who's had a really good playoff so far. But those discipline issues sort of came to light during the last game. They scored on both of those power plays. And then, of course, Pavelski. So they've got some nice veteran pieces now. But playoff hockey becomes way more physical. And if you're a really talented team who can match that with a physical aspect, you're going to go really far. With the team like the Lightning, who, of course, came off of a really disappointing playoff run last year, being swept in the first round after winning the President's Trophy, they were the most dominant regular season team maybe ever. They were outstanding. 138 points or so. What did they finish
Something
with?
stupid
128,
like that,
I think it was.
Yeah.
Or maybe I'm getting that number mixed up with Nikita Kucherov.
560 points they finished with.
Or was that the amount of points that Nikita finished with? That's how good they were.
Oh, man.
And they had the most skilled player in the league at that point. But then the Blue Jackets just played playoff hockey and absolutely bullied them. Now, when you mix that with a team as skilled as the Lightning, Braden Point, Nikita Kucherov, when they get a healthy Steven Stamkos, that's going to be really scary. They get Patrick Maroon from the Blues, who won it all last year. You've got a Vezina goaltender in Andrei Vasilevsky. You've got a Norris winner in Victor Hedman. When you can package all of that together, I think a team like Tampa needed an under-the-radar type entry into the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Yeah.
I go back to the Capitals when they won 2 years ago against Vegas. They were perennial President's Trophy winners, but and so they always got everyone's best shot, which you're going to get in the playoffs anyways. But maybe they needed a playoff run where they come in with maybe slightly lower expectations or can sort of fly under the radar a little bit more. And then, of course, Braden Holtby puts on the postseason of a lifetime. They go all the way, winning 5.
They just needed to get past Pittsburgh.
Yeah, that's right.
Once that happened,
and we
knew they were going to, have a pretty good shot.
And Boston can be that type of team for the Tampa Bay Lightning. So if they dispatch them, they might now be my favorite to go all the way. I really like Vegas. Vegas looks very strong out west. How do you rule out a team like Dallas, who, if they dispatch a team as skilled as the Avalanche? But, as he said, I think the Lightning are really piecing it all together right now. They're an exceptionally talented team, and now they're playing physically. Boston days could be numbered.
The thing that really kind of blows me away about Nikita Kucherov in particular is you watch him on the ice and he doesn't necessarily do anything super flashy, but he's just always in the right place at the right time.
Yep.
He rarely makes the wrong play with the puck, and it's oftentimes a play that any other player on the ice wouldn't have actually seen. And then he sees the play there, makes it, and you're just like, oh my, where did that come from? But he's not, he's not one of these super dynamic, gonna dangle all over the ice kind of guys, because, and I think that is working to his advantage in this series, because it is very understated, the work he's doing. It's showing up on the stat sheet, so it's not too understated. But I think the kind of work that he is doing on the ice, just making the right plays, playing within the team game, and they just look so sound. There is not one player on that roster who's looking like they're trying to do anything individually, which I think is something that you not necessarily you're in danger of, but when you have a team that has as much talent as the Tampa Bay Lightning, and maybe you have moments of the game where certain things aren't going your way, you're tempted to try and pick up the team on your back and do things by yourself. Now, they, since game one, haven't really had a moment like that. They've pretty much been in the driver's seat since then. But you got to hand it to the coaching staff of the Tampa Bay Lightning. They have got this team dialed in, and it's pretty impressive when you have a team like the Bruins and you have them looking like they might be out of answers. Anyway, I'm sure this is not endearing any Tuukka Rask to the Bruins fanship at all. But nevertheless, there we are. 3-1 Tampa Bay Lightning. Elsewhere, the New York Islanders are up 3-1 on the Philadelphia Flyers, as opposed to the Vancouver Canucks, who at the time of the COVID-19 postponement of the regular season, the New York Islanders were also another team that was just on the outside looking in to the playoff picture, 1 point back of the wild card spot, the final wild card spot in the Eastern Conference. They are looking very comfortable right now as well, up on the Philadelphia Flyers. And I don't want to harp on it, but those former Leafs really making an impact.
Yeah, they sure are.
Leo Komarov, Matt Martin, both with goals the other night against the Flyers. They much like I was saying about the the Tampa Bay Lightning, they just seem to be dialed in. And Barry Trotz, man,
I know,
he's doing it again.
The system works, and I was like the Flames. I was drinking that Philadelphia Flyers Kool-Aid too. After they secured the top spot in the East, they were the hottest team before the postponement of the season. They had a really good year. Alain Vigneault at the helm. He was in the running for the Jack Adams Award. They looked really, really solid. Carter Hart playing exceptionally good hockey, and even into the playoffs, he's been awesome. Now they're looking for answers. I think they rolled with Elliott the other night. But the Islanders, like you said, I think it comes down to Barry Trotz and the system. As soon as they get up, and they were kind of poking fun at it a little bit the other night, you wouldn't even see Islanders players on the television screen because they're not forechecking. They are running 5 guys in the neutral zone and into their zone. So when the puck comes in, they are a tough team to get by. You've got to dump and chase and hope you get there first, but it's hard when you've got 5 guys beyond the neutral zone. And Varlamov playing really good hockey. Well,
they're continuing to thrive with the 2 goal system.
Yeah, because Greiss got the win.
Thomas Greiss started the other night, and it doesn't seem to matter who they start. They're getting good work from both their goaltending. They again also just look like a team that is just totally dialed in.
What a luxury, eh? 2 really good goaltenders, right? Varlamov and Greiss. A good production from Pajot, of course, Barzal. And
Brock Nelson has been great for them as well.
They're looking really good. And another one of my Stanley Cup favorites on the ropes. So clearly I have no idea what I'm talking about.
And finally, the Vancouver Canucks, speaking of on the ropes, very much looking like they are at the absolute mercy of the Vegas Golden Knights right now. They're going to need a big effort to come back in that series. As we mentioned, also down 3-1. There was a moment last week that you may recall on Twitter. Agent of Marc-Andre Fleury, Alan Walsh, tweeted out a picture of Marc-Andre Fleury with a giant sword going through his back. The sword was named De Boer. It was a bit graphic.
It was.
It was a bit over the top.
Yeah.
Perhaps unnecessary.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, I don't want to give Alan Walsh credit for the turnaround. Not that they needed a turnaround, but Marc-Andre Fleury had himself a fantastic night and another shutout the other night for the Vegas Golden Knights. So I don't know if this is a case. Like, you got to wonder what the conversation becomes in the dressing room when something like that happens.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, your agent is not there to answer for it.
Right.
Clearly, your teammates see that sort of thing. Clearly, your coach, who is in the dressing room talking with the players, sees that sort of thing. Do you wonder if that just creates awkwardness, or do they just ignore it? Like, what do you do?
Yeah, it's a good question, especially because it's not coming from himself. It's coming from his agent, who maybe he didn't even know that it was going out. I think he claimed he didn't, which may very well be the case. And I think Walsh has gotten himself into trouble before doing this type of thing. Yeah. He's clearly very outspoken for his clients, which isn't a bad thing.
Was he the free Jake Gardiner?
Maybe
agent too.
I can't think of anything specifically, but I have heard that he has gotten himself into trouble with this type of thing before. Marc-Andre Fleury's the ultimate professional. He's got as good a resume as pretty much any active goaltender, probably the best in the NHL right now. He's a proven winner. First year with the Knights, took them all the way to the Stanley Cup final.
Yep.
Has had great regular seasons with them. It just so happens Robin Lehner's playing really good hockey, and when it comes to the Vancouver Canucks, he's really got their number. The stats are pretty crazy in terms of how he's been able to stifle the Canucks. I figured he would get the start, Marc-Andre Fleury, in Game 4 last night, and he did, and he got a win. So I'm hoping, that patches things over a little bit, but they're going to support Marc-Andre Fleury, I would think. He's a veteran goaltender. He's a winning goaltender, and I'm sure he's not doing anything in the locker room to create distractions, and everyone said the right thing since.
Yes, yeah. Part of me wonders if this is just someone like Alan Walsh just kind of slowly being dragged into the new reality in the NHL. That is, two goalie systems are now becoming a very common thing.
Right.
Like, I think we may be approaching the era now where your starting and your defined backup goalie maybe aren't really a thing anymore.
Yeah.
Maybe you have 1A, you have 1B. It's worked for Vegas to this point with Fleury and Lehner. It's worked with the Islanders with Varlamov and Greiss.
Yeah.
It's I don't. I think
had he not left the bubble, maybe Rask and Halak,
exactly.
Maybe they share the crease.
You couldn't go wrong with those two.
Elliott, Hart, pretty much every contender at this point of the game has two goaltenders that they can rely on pretty heavily.
In Dallas, Ben Bishop and Anton Khudobin.
Yeah.
I don't actually, off the top of my head, I was wondering this the other day. I don't actually remember hearing, is Ben Bishop injured?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's why he's not getting the start over Khudobin.
Yeah. I mean, like, Khudobin, I in my opinion, has been one of the most underrated goalies in the league in the past 5 years. He's played, I think, on like 3 different teams in the last 5 years, and he's just played well for them.
Very solid.
And it's like, what do you have to do to lock down a place to play in? But nevertheless, he is getting it done once again in Dallas. Before we get off the NHL, Mike, as you know, as a co-host here of Cabin Sports Radio, and if you're a listener to Cabin Sports Radio, we tend to look through things through the lens of a Toronto Maple Leafs fan. And the Toronto Maple Leafs, not to be left in the dust after getting dusted out of the return to play, not even making the playoffs here. They made some headlines. A big trade, a name that had been bandied about for the better part of the last 2 years.
Yep.
He is headed back to Pittsburgh, the place where they got him from in an infamous trade involving Phil Kessel. Kasperi Kapanen headed back to Pittsburgh for a package including a first-round pick in this year's upcoming entry draft, a few spare parts, names after that. Mike, your thoughts?
Well, we knew this was going to happen. I think as soon as they were officially eliminated, like you said, not even qualifying for the official playoffs. We knew that they would be doing some window shopping. They clearly have cap constraints right now. They've got $40 million tied up to 4 forwards, some expiring deals, some guys hitting the open market as early as this summer. We know players like Tyson Barrie, Cody Ceci, they're not coming back because there's no cap room, and some people are going to need raises in the coming years. I think you've got Anderson for only 1 more year, Morgan Riley for I think until 2023. Thankfully, they were able to re-up with Muzzin. That was a nice surprise during the regular season last year. But everyone knows that they have cap constraints right now. So they're shopping around. Even Anderson may be wearing a different jersey at the start of the next season. Frederick Anderson, who's held down the crease since 2017, I think, when he came over from Anaheim. Andreas Johnson, probably likely to go. Alex Kerfoot, they're also looking at the trade market for him. So wasn't surprised that Kapanen was dealt. I know you've got your own take, but what I saw, honestly, on the Twitterverse, which is not to be taken for absolute credibility, because I remember last year when the trade was made for Tyson Barrie, for Nazem Kadri, it was unfortunate to see a really good depth center go. But the thinking at the time was, this is a great return for the Leafs. They get another center, someone who can play on the third line. They get a bona fide top 4 defenseman, an offensive first defenseman, which they did not need at the time. But the thinking was, this is a good trade.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the playoffs roll around. Nazem Kadri is almost leading the league in scoring right now in postseason points. Tyson Barrie did not show up. Alex Kerfoot did not show up for the Maple Leafs. So those trade grades really mean nothing because we don't know how it's going to pan out. But what I saw, people were pretty happy about this. You get a prospect, a valuable prospect. I can't remember who it is right now, but in return, and then you get a first-round pick, and you get to shed a little bit of salary at the same time, which I'm sure would have been the main motivator for a move like this. So, Lekter, I know you disagree, but from what I saw on the Twitterverse, experts, Leaf fans, pretty happy with this trade.
Yeah, and I saw the same thing. I saw a couple articles kind of outlining why this is potentially a big win for the Toronto Maple Leafs. One of the big names that they got was Philip Hallander. And I mean, I say big names. Like, these are all prospects.
Right.
And really, Hallander is the only one that I think could be classified as still a prospect, aka someone who, you don't really have a body of work, but there's a lot of anticipation that they may turn out to be a pretty good player. And that could very well be the case. You don't know. Evan Rodriguez, 27 years old. He's kind of bounced back and forth between the AHL and the NHL.
Yeah.
David Warsofsky, kind of the same deal. 30 years old.
Yeah, journeyman at this stage.
Journeyman type player. I don't know that either of these players make an impact. I don't know that Philip Hallander is ready for an NHL role next year. Perhaps a few more years of working on his game in the AHL. So obviously a first round pick is great.
Yep.
It's a 15th overall. So you don't know necessarily when you draft 15th overall what you're going to be getting. We all know what's at the top of the draft this year, which is of course Lafreniere
going to New York.
So that's obviously big. But when you get down to 15th, who knows? My gripe is that, and you can see this on my Twitter feed. If you want to follow me on Twitter at Lekter, I never throw that out there because I almost prefer that you don't. But anyway, if you want to see occasional hot takes on Toronto Maple Leafs trades, I don't like the deal.
Yeah.
I've been opposed to this idea that you need to trade Kasperi Kapanen. And for the last 2 years, that's all you've really heard about the guy, is that he is trade bait. They're going to find something. They're going to package him with something else and try and bring a return. The thinking was of a top 4 defenseman, hopefully, which I could get behind if they had done that. They didn't do that.
Yeah.
Now, I don't understand why. And the one interesting piece that you got back from that Phil Kessel trade, several years ago, he goes to Pittsburgh, helps them win 2 cups.
Yep.
You get Kasperi Kapanen back. We're all kind of like, oh, That's an interesting piece. All right. Yeah, that okay, we'll take that. He develops into a player that other teams actually have to consider when you're game planning for the Toronto Maple Leafs. They don't have a whole lot of team depth outside of scoring. Obviously, you have to game plan for Austin Matthews. You have to game plan for John Tavares. You have to game plan for Mitch Marner.
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't know that you necessarily
Willie,
have
if
to...
he feels like playing?
Yeah, I don't know that you have to game plan for William Nylander. Kasperi Kapanen was the other name on that roster that you legitimately have to game plan for because he's one of the fastest players in the league. You let him get behind your defense, get that outlet pass to him, and you weren't going to catch him. He also added a little bit of grit up front.
He's a penalty killer, too.
He's a penalty killer. He checks a lot of boxes that the Toronto Maple Leafs didn't have a lot of in the area. Now, they got a lot of speed, but obviously, Kasperi Kapanen has next gear type speed. Yeah. That's stuff that can really scare any defenseman around the league. So now that he's become a usable player and arguably a top 6 forward, if you want to make him one, you ship him back to Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
What was your hot take that... Basically, they're the farm team for it. We're going to develop him and then send him back. Hey, here's a complete player now. Enjoy.
Yeah. He was pretty young when you guys had him, but now he's a heck of a player.
Oh, yeah.
Here you go. Here he is back. It's almost like the Toronto Maple Leafs have become just unannounced the Pittsburgh Penguins farm club. But
and we didn't owe them a favor after giving them Phil.
That's
leads
right.
them to two. Did he win the Conn Smythe?
I don't think he won a Conn Smythe, but he was in the running.
He racked up like 20 points that post. Sidney Crosby got it, but he racked up like 20 points.
Oh, he played phenomenal.
He was in the conversation legitimately with Crosby.
Yeah.
So there you go. Have another forward.
So there you go. You're welcome, Pittsburgh. So I was not a fan of the trade, but again, hopefully the Twitter experts are right, and we will see in time that this is potentially a big win for the Toronto Maple Leafs. What an oxymoron. Big win for the Toronto Maple Leafs. All right, so we are going to take one more break and come back and wrap things up on Cabin Sports Radio.
The CSR Podcast.
Cabin Sports Radio, brought to you by Sport North, moving sport forward. Wrapping things up as we roll towards the end of the show for another week. As you heard earlier in the show, Mike mentioned Jamal Murray of the Denver Nuggets has been an absolute beast for his team, scoring 40 points, more than 40 points in his last 3 games, and capping it off with 50 to force a Game 7 in their series versus the Utah Jazz. Here is the post-game audio after his huge night, talking about where he is getting some of this energy from. See you next time on Cabin Sports Radio.
How did you carry over the momentum from an explosive Game 4, Game 5, and then put everything else aside that happened this week and go out and drop 50 in a must-win game tonight?
You gotta win to win. These shoes mean a lot. With all the shoes mean a lot.
Take a deep breath, Jamal. You were outstanding tonight. We understand that these are tough times. Jamal, what are you thinking about right now?
I just want to win. And in life, you find things that hold value to you and things to fight for. And we found something worth fighting for as an NBA, as a collective unit. And I use these shoes as a symbol to me to keep fighting all around the world. So like I said, they give me a lot of power to keep fighting, and we want to win. I show my emotion, it comes out, so.
You have a picture of George Floyd on your right shoe here. We got Breonna Taylor. Why has this been so personal for you, Jamal?
Because it's not just in America. It happens everywhere. And for us to come together at the NBA, and, it doesn't take one meeting. It takes a couple meetings, a few meetings. It takes phone calls. It takes persistence. It's not going to take one night, and we've been trying to fight for 400 years. But these shoes give me life. Even though these people are gone, they give me life. They help me find strength to keep fighting this world. That's what I'm keep doing.
You're a special person, Jamal Murray, on and off the court. Congratulations.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for all you did. There's a lot of people, BA and C-Web, that are proud of Jamal Murray all around North America tonight.